What's going on, fam? Welcome to the Get the Bag podcast. I think we're episode 29,
Yeah,
approaching 30.
man.
That's crazy. Hope you guys are having an amazing day. I'm your host, Gladia Castro, my co host, Tim Park.
Hey, fam.
And what's up? What's up? Happy Friday. Have to
Happy
reschedule
Friday.
a few things, but getting it done. But as I always mention, it's a live show. So please post your comments, engage with us. We're always happy to answer any questions. But don't forget, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the reminders, follow us on IG at the real underscore, or I'm sorry, at get underscore the bag podcast. Got confused with my own personal one, but you can follow us too at real estate Gladia at Mr. Tim REI. And we'll be talking about some fire topic. I think people, everyone's talking about it at some point. From what I've noticed in the real estate world, is in the recession we're in now, because we can just say we are. It's not technically hasn't
hmm
been mentioned, I don't think officially, but just based off of what we're seeing in the market, and it's happening everywhere. So what I'm seeing a lot of people ask in forums and everywhere is it still a good time to invest in
hmm
a down market or recession, or what they call it, big bear or bear market, right?
Yeah, right.
um and so yeah, we're going to talk about what's how that's worked out for us, what our plan is to acquire assets and ownership, or and then what we're kind of doing. And so this will be kind of similar to our previous conversation, but more in line of um, what kind of plans you can do, especially if you haven't really gotten started,
hmm
that kind of stuff. So Tim, kind of throwing it to you,
Yeah,
what do you think? Is it a good time to invest? I mean, what's kind of your plans going into, the
sure.
recession?
I think personally, just to get into real estate is the smart thing to do, regardless in whatever you do, because in whatever aspect of real estate you're in, you're just going to learn. And I mean, investing in real estate uh, would is kind of the best time to do it in a recession. From what I gathered back in 2008, a lot of people, at least investor wise, right? A lot of people that were investors and had cash bought up all the properties that were way below market because they had to offload them, right? Just
Mhm.
because there was so much inventory out there that was, you know, people were kind of in trouble, with their loans and trying to get it out of their situation. So, as an investor, usually what happens in, you know, a recession is they kind of stack their cash, and when it officially hits and they see, I guess, the bottom of that, that's when they kind of pour into a lot of their investments and then see how they could, hold on to the property or resell the property at a later date or whatever the case may be. But there's a lot of different strategies that go into being in a recession. So I think we'll talk about those too,
Mhm.
later on. But yeah, I think as long as you have the cash to do it, there's people still investing now. I mean, it's
Right.
just, they're investing in maybe buy and holds, or they're investing in commercial property, or you know different aspects. But there is money being spent to invest in real estate, and that's, I think, in every cycle there's still some kind of investment going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point where people right now are buying, I mean, from what I understand, in any recession, that's where people make the most money. That's where people
hmm
grow their wealth, is
Right.
in a recession, because you kind of talk about like whatever the media or news is saying, you kind of want to do the opposite in a way, if you're like smart. So if somebody's telling you don't do this,
hmm
you
hmm
see like smart investors doing the opposite, because the mass may be more resistant on acquiring properties. And that's just one thing too that I'm seeing as well. And we did talk about this with like a couple episodes ago with
Mm-hmm.
the recession and where the market's going and how to adjust.
Yeah.
But this is more on acquiring properties too. And it's funny, I was just today I was writing down because it's first first day of quarter 3 Q3,
Mm-hmm. Wow.
and just writing down my goals for the next 3 months. And one of them is to acquire a multifamily, or at least get damn
Mm-hmm.
close to it,
Yeah.
because where the market has been the last year, it's been like prices have been just skyrocketing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, sellers, and you have these situations too with wherever you're acquiring, maybe the memorandums, or the evictions are starting,
Mm-hmm.
those are starting
Yep.
to, moratoriums, I should say, are starting to get lifted. So there may be more focus on those aspects, on those sellers, where sellers may be a little bit more freaked out and wanting to sell. So, and I think I was talking to someone the other day, and they were just saying, you're really, if you're focusing on direct to seller, you're really going to have to focus on like your sales skills. And so that you've been
Mm-hmm.
practicing, if you've been in the wholesaling game, like your negotiation skills is what's going to, take you to the next level. So, that's something that I'm kind of focusing on, is looking for pain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anybody that really is in a really tough rut, and just seeing how you can solve problems. But I think it's a great opportunity for those who haven't owned properties or owned assets. This is a great opportunity, even with
Yeah.
interest rates. Um, especially going into like multifamily, that's more calculated. You're kind of
Mm-hmm.
running the numbers more. You kind of want to run numbers on, like, be more precaution, take precaution on,
Mm-hmm.
the numbers that you're crunching in to just see what's coming out of that. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what's, never thought I'd say I'm excited during a recession, but I don't think we're in the at all what it was last year, or
Yeah.
10 years
Do that.
ago
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
2008. It just seems it's a different type of recession. So I'm happy. I'm also investing in stocks. So there's just so many things you can do. Like,
Mm-hmm.
don't shy away. I think if anything, learn as much as you can on like what's going on, what other investors are doing.
Yeah, I agree with that because, I think when we were out of real estate and kind of didn't know what was going on, it just seems like a scary situation.
Right.
And that's why people ask that question. And they've always thought about maybe getting into real estate or investing. And now that, things are seem bad in kind of everyday life, right? Um, but if you're an investor in that space, I think their mentality is different. So just think that your mentality has to go in differently, in thinking it's an opportunity, not something that is scary or you're gonna lose from it. Because as long as
Hmm.
you're educated, you have the right training, or you have the right community, or you're getting the right information, then you can be successful in your investing strategy, right?
Right.
Because and then a lot of people, I even talked to some of the investors that were in 2008, right?
Mm.
They even said they should have bought more, right? Than they
Everybody
even
says
did.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So um so I think, they learn from the cycle, and you know, each cycle is different. Of course, this is totally different. We had a pandemic as well, and everything is going up, and we're just watching a lot of things that I think I didn't watch. I'm watching now, right?
Oh yeah.
Just understanding the interest rates and the Fed, understanding the like job losses, what's happening if people are getting if companies are laying off people, so just different things that kind of trigger what the market's going to do. And even being in it on a daily, you see the slowdown, right?
Yeah.
mainstream doesn't see that, right? They don't see that. I mean, since we're in it all the time and we're making offers all the time, and you know, we're seeing what like retail houses are going for, and there's a decline in reducing prices. 50,000,
Right.
100,000, whatever. We're seeing that decline, so we kind of see it on a daily basis. But I would I kind of stick with it as like don't shy away from real estate investing or real estate in general, just because um, things seem to be bad in the mainstream, right?
Mm. Yeah, that's huge because I mean the mainstream will just kind of pick and choose like maybe on a high level like what's happening,
Hmm.
and for somebody who's not involved in real estate, like they take that as compared to us who, like you said, see it every day. But I've kind of made it a habit to check the real estate news.
Mm.
Like, I mean, I think you showed me like CoStar has like their little real estate
Hmm.
feed. I've seen like the Wall Street Journal, like Business Journal, and I never, like, honestly, like 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, I would never imagine myself being that person. Like,
Right.
like instead of reading the newspaper, I'm reading news articles online. Like, I never would have thought myself of doing that. But this is the kind of you're packing yourself with ammunition, or like,
Hmm.
you're packing your toolbox with this knowledge that you can use when you're speaking to sellers.
Right.
Imagine having read like some articles and speaking to seller, and you're negotiating. You can be like, yeah, in this area, I see that, there's been a downturn of whatever X, Y, and Z and percentage of this and that. And you can use that, and it makes you sound like you
Yeah.
know what you're talking about, right?
100%.
It's just taking little excerpts and using that for like negotiation, even like we talked about. So that's something I've started to build in like my routine, and I totally recommend everyone to look at it, even if it's just like for 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Like, we look at Instagram, right? We can be on
Hmm.
there, but looking at actual resources and articles, I think will really pack you with knowledge that
Hmm.
maybe other people aren't taking advantage of, and will kind of make you stick out in
Yeah.
the masses. So that's like
Yeah.
one thing I've been really focusing on, is like education
Hmm.
over anything.
Yeah, I think that's super important. I know that Chris within the Charged Up University, he's big on that too. Is that like he reads the major newspapers like New York Times, L.A.
Mhm.
Times, because they have different articles on the industry as well, so they're kind of
Right.
tapped in on what's going on. But like, and it's just really important to kind of just educate yourself on anything. Like if whatever industry you're going to, you have to educate yourself on what's happening in that industry. So it's the same thing with real estate.
Yeah.
And I think people have to do that. I know they want to jump in and they want to do it and all that, but it's a bigger picture, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes you have to step back and see the bigger picture on seeing what's going on in the industry, so you can adjust and pivot and align your strategies to what's going on in the market or what's going
Right.
on in your city, even.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something we've talked about too, is like, you should be auditing what's happening in your business um every week, month, quarter, just seeing like, okay, like how did I do last quarter? And that's something I'm kind of working on too, is like KPIs and data is like
Hmm.
my nemesis. Like I'm not the biggest fan of that, but it's just putting systems in place for it, but looking like,
Hmm.
okay, how many offers, or how active was I in this and that, um,
Hmm.
to then analyze, okay, now that this market, which I think I'd mentioned before, like the bear market is actually like when the prices are really high. It's like the hot market, right? And then we're in
Hmm.
the recession or down. My God, I can't recall the exact terminology of it,
Hmm.
but people say in a recession, and I said before, like that's where you make your money, because
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
where everything we've learned. So we've been in this now, what, a year and a half or so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, everything we learned was for this moment, for this cycle that we're in. Whereas before we weren't equipped with the proper information. Otherwise, we would have been, you know,
Yeah,
I would have been in
absolutely.
my age myself, but like my early 20s, like acquiring property instead of whatever the hell I was spending money
Mhm.
on.
Mhm.
So, we have the knowledge now. We can't blame anyone else. Like this
Nope.
is the proper opportunity to really invest. And so I mentioned earlier, I was writing down my goals, and mentioned my goal this quarter is to get close to acquiring a deal, keeping my credit up if I need to use like financing, but maybe
Mhm.
utilizing creative financing. That's also
Yeah.
another way to kind of get around the down market,
Mhm.
because well, subject to that's a little tricky. You need to have some more information, but like a seller finance where
Mhm. Yep.
um, you have people that own it free and clear, and it's a great way to just own a property right off the bat. I
Mhm.
mean, you may need to bring some money up front for closing costs and depending if the seller wants a down payment, but that's about it. You don't need to go through financing. So that's like the best way. And I don't know how that works with bigger
Mhm.
multifamily. I've seen people do it like someone
Yeah.
like Pace. But he also preaches subject to, because imagine people that acquired loans at like a low rate too. Like if you take
Mhm.
over that those payments, you're paying a super low interest rate, and
100%.
with no money in. And I'm kind of curious, like for like subject to like seller finance, is that something? Sounds like for commercial though, a lot of that if it is done like cash, but maybe not. Is there like a lot of like terms done like that where it's like over payments over time, or do you mostly see like
Mhm.
cash?
I think, mostly it's, owner financing or seller financing, and, the situation is that uh it's more common in commercial a lot of the times because some of it is they don't want that, you know, capital gain right away type
Mm,
of situation, so they try to watch out for that a lot. But
right.
I see it more common in the commercial space. And uh, what's good about that is they're more educated about it. So the option, when that option arises, there's no surprise. Like,
You don't have
how
to
does that
educate
work?
them,
Yeah,
right?
no, they already kind of know that's a feature. Or if you're working with the broker, they'll present it to the seller in the correct way, and it's just agreeing on the terms. What's the terms and what makes sense on that. So
Yeah. Yeah, so I love that, and I think one of our topics here was also our questions. What is the best way to get into real estate in the current market? So somebody starting fresh, I'm sure it can be really
mhm,
intimidating. Like I try to put myself in a position of like, okay, if I started today, like
mhm,
would I have started, or would I have convinced myself? No, it's like going into recession.
mhm,
Let me wait it out. I don't know. I don't know what I would have done had I not like been educated on real estate and just kind of
right,
what people are doing. So, all I would recommend is educate yourself. Reach out to people like us, or there's so many other people that are killing it in real estate, or kind of
mhm,
that with the knowledge. There's like like we mentioned, join a community, but learn and take action. Take like little steps, and figure
100%,
out what you want to focus on. Obviously, wholesaling is the least form of resistance. You don't have to have that much money down, but you'll really have to learn your negotiation and your sales skills, because you're going into a tough market right now,
mhm,
where you really have to lean on like convincing sellers, that they should sell right now, because
yeah,
what's happening is either sellers are convinced that it's still in a bear market where it's hot, I can get my property for this much, and you have to
mhm,
educate them
mhm,
more, or even like send them articles, or refer to those articles that you've talked about. Or it's a situation where maybe they want to wait. to sell, because it's,
Right.
again, because they understand, maybe they're a little bit more knowledgeable. They're like, oh, maybe I should have sold, 3 months ago. And now you have to like really convince them, well, right now is the time. If you wait even longer, and maybe even less. So
Mhm.
that's kind of like the way to go, because we don't know
Mhm.
where it's going to go. I don't
Mhm.
know how long this will last. Obviously, we'll get through it, but don't know for how long
Yeah.
it'll take. So, um, really find a community, or find somebody you resonate with, and work with them, see how you can add value. But take
Mhm.
baby steps as you're learning things. That's like the wholesaling side. Flip,
Mhm.
I mean, even some people are pausing on fix and flips
Mhm.
because of the costs.
Yeah.
Because they'll fix it up, whatever they say the cost to fix up a property, to put it on the
Mhm.
market, it's no longer what they projected. So if they bought the home 6 months ago, or even 3 months ago, they projected a certain price, and now that price isn't there. They have to lower
Mhm.
the listing price, so
Right.
that breaks
Right.
on your profit. And I think another strategy that Chris has talked about as well is wholesaling. That's
Mhm.
maybe
Mhm.
something more in line with what's going on, but
Yeah.
that's wholesaling, is where it's similar to wholesaling, but you actually buy the property, and you buy the property outright, and you don't really do much to it. You
Mm-mm.
buy, and then you resell it to you put it on the market with an agent,
Mhm.
and you sell it to a retail buyer.
Mhm.
So these are people who will actually, like, most likely live in it, and fix it up themselves. But
Mhm.
that's a really great way um, to make extra money without putting in any effort.
Mhm.
Obviously, it requires some capital to acquire the property, but if you have the right connections, or the right funding, or good private money, or hard money lender,
Mhm.
you'd be able to. And it's so quick. It's like
Yeah.
wholesaling almost.
Super quick. Yeah.
So that's also another strategy that I think Chris is doing more in
Mhm.
this sort of market right now, where he's I think he said he's doing half wholesaling, half wholetailing.
Mhm.
That's kind of his focus on right now. So there's so many ways to do it. I would just focus on one lane, and just learn as much about it, and take action.
Right.
That's
Right.
really you can do in this sort of market.
Definitely. I totally agree with that. I think hoteling is a great play. I think he had mentioned too that it's larger spreads, but
Right.
you have to make the decision if you're going to make, you know, what's going to be the easier play for you personally, right? And if it's, you're going to have to share that capital with somebody that actually put in the money, or if you just wholesale it, is that going to be just a better situation, faster situation for you? So
Right.
as you learn these different strategies, you'll decide which one is best for you. But these at least are options for you to get into real estate investing, um, you know, in this climate, right? And like you were saying too, is like I think when you're wholesaling, it just hones your um, skills a little bit
Mhm.
better, because
Mhm.
it may take you a little bit to actually get a deal in this climate, but at the same time, it will, let you focus on the issues with the seller. It will allow you to negotiate price a lot better, and
Mhm.
then also, analyze a deal to make sure it is a deal. So those are some
Right.
very important uh, things that you need to do or initially know within wholesaling that are very important no matter what the climate is, right?
Right. Right. It's all the skills, especially if you started even like 6 months ago, the skills you've been learning over time,
Mm-hmm.
like comping, doing
Mm-hmm.
comps. You don't wanna compare it to a sale of last year.
Mm-hmm.
You probably wanna get something as close as possible, at least something this year. But even like comps from like 3 months ago no longer,
I know.
like when I even talk to sellers, they're even saying like, "No, like, I sold a similar property just, a month ago versus now, and there's a huge difference, and there's no
I
way I'm gonna
know.
buy it at this price." So that'll make you learn real quick, like, okay, well, um, instead of like, because with Chris, he kind of uses the anchor price, like for
Mm-hmm.
comping, where it's like,
Right.
you look at the comps, a very similar comp, say you're looking at a single family, 3 bedroom, 2 bath. You want to find something exactly like that and compare, okay, what was that price sold at? Because they don't, when you look at a HUD or at the transaction history, you're not going to see the wholesaling price.
Mm-hmm.
You're only going to
Mm-hmm.
see what the purchase price that the wholesaler agreed with the seller. So what Chris usually teaches, and we're kind of giving gems here, is you want to deduct how much you would actually want minus that price. So say
Exactly.
the property, the comp you're looking at sold at 100K, and you're like, okay, well, I want to at least make 20K. Then you maybe start at a 70K, so that your MAO, your max allowable offer, is 80K, because you
Mm-hmm.
can move it at a certain price, or whatever the case may be. So it's very logical that you don't have to do calculations. I think a lot of other people, which it works for them, but it does vary by market. They do calculations instead of like, purchase price times this minus
Right.
repairs
Right.
minus your assignment fee, because you're considering whoever's buying it. But with this sense, you're kind of seeing, okay, this person bought it or sold it at this price. I need to be here. So it's understanding what's being sold in that area, like as close as possible, to really then learn, like, okay, I need to be at this price. So if you're getting
Mm-hmm.
feedback from buyers as well, that can also be another way to add to your toolbox. Okay, right now buyers are being at this price, so I need to be a little bit lower and negotiate a little bit lower in price to get at least something.
Mm-hmm.
But you see some people, they're still closing deals.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just adjusting and working with your team, if you have one, and just continuing what you're doing, like just continuing taking action. So um, I think it's just one hurdle, and I bet you so many people have probably quit because it's getting too hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it just happens when you're so close. And I think somebody had mentioned today, like usually people give up when they're so close to the finish line. I just love that quote.
I
Uh,
know.
but I mean, right now it's not easy. So you have to be creative, and this is what we've talked about too, in like creating solutions.
Mm-hmm. No, I think you're I mean you're spot on. I mean that was a gem in itself with the comping, because I think I had one here, and I was looking at the comps, and it was like 400,000 for just an as is property,
Mm,
but that was sold like at the beginning of the year and then late last year, right?
mm,
And then one that happened just last month, a sale, was $100,000 less.
right.
Like, so I was like, oh crap.
And this
So
is
I had,
California.
yeah, this is California. So I had to definitely adjust my offer based on what happened just recently, right?
Mhm.
So, and then historically, I know that area anyway, so I know I need to be under a certain amount, right? So
Right,
for my particular buyer. So, but I was just seeing you. That's what you're going back to. Like you can't go off of comps that happened like you know a few months ago, or even last year, right?
right,
Because it's a totally different environment right now. Which you as a starter, you don't know that right off the bat, right? These are things that we're kind of sharing on this podcast, but
right.
it's definitely something you will have to learn as you're doing the business. But what we're trying to do is help you understand that there is a way to do it without having an issue with a buyer or seller in that
Mm.
instance, right? So
And it's just setting the
so
proper expectations
hmm
too.
absolutely.
And one thing I'm like, I'm not, maybe before, when you do get started, you kind of want to, if you get a lead, you're just super excited and you kind of focus a lot on the leads that don't, like, you shouldn't be focusing on. So for
Hmm.
people kind of getting started, like, don't get hung up, like just make the offer, If the seller doesn't want it or doesn't buy it, doesn't mean that the lead is dead. It just means you
Mhm.
just have to follow up. And this is where follow up is key. And I was telling
Mhm.
somebody this the other day is like, maybe people that you called in January that aren't interested, call them now, or you should have been
Yep.
calling them anyways.
Yeah.
But call them now and see where they're
Mhm.
at. Because again, situations change all the time. Maybe
Yeah.
people are now dealing with pre-foreclosure or now like evictions because some
Mhm.
moratoriums have been lifted in certain markets. I think in California, it does vary, but I don't know. They were lifted, but now there's kind of like rent. There's been like rent relief programs, but
Mhm.
I think that's supposed to end. I think I read it end of June, or maybe it already
Mhm.
ended. I don't know. I think again it varies on markets, but I was reading somewhere that said that the rent relief where tenants can apply, I think expired yesterday.
Mhm.
I'll have to double check my sources, but that's another opportunity to if you really want to just focus on one thing, focus on probates, focus on pre foreclosures, evictions. You
Mhm.
want to find pain in solving problems. But if people, you know, aren't really motivated, you shouldn't be wasting your time
Mhm.
on that, on those
Yeah.
people. It doesn't mean you shouldn't call them. You should still follow up because who knows? Like I started I cleaned out my CRM and started calling, just following up with people maybe I spoke to 6 months ago, or maybe I sent them a text message and they said they weren't interested. And now like I'm getting more reception, like of
Mhm.
people being either interested or saying like, yeah, well, I'm dealing with this issue now and like I think it makes sense to sell. So
Mhm.
this is why we say like follow up is so key. And just make the offer and go on to the next one. If they
That's
say
it.
yes, great. If not, add them to a follow up and keep it moving.
Mhm.
So that's for people starting out and wanting to get in real estate and want to like wholesale, it's a great opportunity.
Mhm.
But the end goal should be you have to own something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and if
100%.
you don't have capital, if you don't have the credit for it, wholesaling is a great way. Now, if you do have the capital, so little devil's advocate, if you had funds, or you had close these deals, what are you doing in this market to acquire assets?
Currently, I'm looking for the best deal. Like I can't in this market, and mostly it's going to probably be multifamily. Honestly, not a house,
Hmm.
and because the houses, if you've stacked your cash enough, that the houses will be available at a cheaper price down
Hmm.
the road.
Right.
Um, in certain situations, right? In certain markets for sure, right? Ones that are hit pretty heavy
Yeah.
in the bottom of the recession. And that's when, then you can acquire properties, right? And so uh, I think running the numbers in multifamily and getting an opportunity, maybe tired landlord, or they're a lot of people are retiring. A lot of people are just maybe in a financial situation where they can't do anything. So whatever their um, motivation is, it is very similar to residential,
Right.
but at the same time, you just have to look at the numbers to see if it's a good deal, and then purchase that because that whatever, if you get a loan or if you pay cash on it, it's still going to generate some kind of revenue for you on a
Hmm.
monthly basis, right?
Right.
For
Right.
that multifamily. And then you slowly fix that up, and you maybe some value add to the apartments, and as people move out, then you renovate and all of that. So it's just, and then you get higher rents, right?
Hmm.
Because historically now, I mean, we're at the almost higher rents at this point than we were,
Right.
definitely a year ago. So it's a situation where there's a trend in the rental rates, and people that are coming off of their homes are going to need a place to actually rent, right? So
Mm,
they might be
right.
getting out of their situation of the house because they were upside down, and now they need a place to live, so they're going to go to an apartment and then kind of reassess what the next move for them is, right? So
Right.
that's why multifamily, in my opinion, is always kind of a good play in this,
Right.
this climate or this market.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that, like with the rents, especially like California,
Mhm.
where I think, and I think we were discussing this in the another episode too of like, are we leading towards having more renters than owners?
Mm.
And so this is why like buying a property at this time is the best way
Mhm.
because again, like you said, people are going to be in situations it's easy to rent. Of course, you have to run your credit and everything, but people that need a place to stay, they're going to, if you have a property for that, it's a great opportunity there. Um I mean, for me, if I had the funds, I would totally buy whatever property I can acquire, obviously, like, running the numbers properly,
Mhm.
and ensuring like, seeing what situation I would be inheriting, if it's a win-win. I don't know if I would do on my own or depending on the size of the
Mhm.
property, right? Like, I may wanna
Yeah.
partner up with someone or, you and I partner up or we partner up with,
Mhm.
a more experienced group and just kinda learn the ropes. Um but I think it's a great way to understand like your first property. You're going to learn so much.
Mhm.
But one thing we were discussing yesterday as well is that typically for multifamily properties, there's always an exit strategy. You always
Mhm.
have to have an exit strategy.
100%.
Right now, maybe refinancing. Now it does vary, but not many people are doing the burst strategy
Mhm.
for certain properties.
That's correct.
Um, but for the most part, when you're acquiring a multifamily, you always have an exit strategy to either sell because either you fixed it up in like a 5-year span and then bam. I think this happens probably more often for larger complexes,
Mhm.
like probably like maybe 50 and up. Who knows? The
Mhm.
smaller ones, I don't know how often. I mean, you still want an exit strategy, but from what I understand, usually, you could acquire a quadplex, have it
Mhm.
for a couple
Mhm.
years, like, value add, and then do a 1031 to get a bigger
Right.
complex. That's usually the
Right.
more natural way. Um, so I mean, there's just so many options. I would probably do something along those lines and have my money work for me. And that's where like
Mhm.
literally your money is working instead of you. Um, so even if you have a 9 to 5 like me, like this is why I would go towards multifamily because I'm very fortunate. Like I make a good amount of money
Mhm.
at my job. So it's like,
Mhm.
how can I like my goal is like, how can I cover my monthly income and I would need hella houses,
Mhm.
for and I kinda did the math too. I would need so many residential homes. I'm like, if I can get like, a 50 unit, 100 unit, and even like
Mhm.
or even several multifamily, like that would cover um what I needed.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I think people shouldn't shy away from these opportunities. Just kind of learn as much as you can. Ask for help if you need it, or
Mhm.
partner up with
Mhm.
people that you trust and start buying properties. Like
Yeah.
there's just no excuse. That's why
No.
I'm really forcing myself to think that way of like
Mhm.
I need to buy properties. Like
Yeah.
there's no way around it.
No, I mean, once we're in this industry and we see different types of deals all the time. So,
Yeah.
for us to participate in, ownership and actually getting involved in maybe even multifamily or just acquiring a house or acquiring land, and
Yeah.
holding on to it. And, so there's a lot of things that can be done. And, it's up to kind of what you want to do and what you see is the best situation for yourself going forward. And, I think your kind of goals kind of align same with my goals and what we're looking at on, multifamily and stuff. So it's definitely a situation where we'll participate on deals together. and that. But I,
Mhm.
like you said, it's important to find, if you don't have the capital, other people that have the capital to work that deal to get to your goal, because it's important to have options, and not say, "Oh, I can't do that," right? Because
Yeah,
there's
I
always a
think that's
way.
such a important point that you brought up. I think people bring up excuses too,
Mhm.
like it's so easy to be like, "Oh, well, we're in a down market. I'm not gonna
Mhm.
buy."
Mhm.
Oh, when we're in a bear market, "Oh, prices are too high. I'm not gonna buy." Like, so it's like,
Mhm.
when are you gonna buy? It just shows it's just never the right time. So that's why I've started, like, switching my mindset to not think,
Mhm.
like, find an excuse because it's comfortable, right? Like,
Yeah.
where we're at, and not pushing yourself. Obviously, like, with everything, there's a risk. There's a risk also
Of
if you
course.
don't do anything.
Of course.
Um, what if you lose your job?
Mhm.
And you
Mhm.
hadn't bought, like, and you bought a multifamily, you at least have some form of income coming in.
Mhm.
So you just never know what's gonna happen. This is why people buy property. So let's drop the excuses. And I'm talking to myself.
Yeah,
You
I
know what I
know.
mean? Like,
Me too.
and just go for it. Because what I've learned is, like, we talk about fear, right? But we
Mhm.
make things up in our head like, oh well, we may run into this. Like,
Mhm.
what I've learned from what people's past experiences, they figure it out as they go.
Yeah.
Like with
100%.
anything new, right? Like, start off with a smaller property, and if it's there, if there's a 50 unit opportunity, like, I'm not gonna shy away from it. I'm gonna
Mm-mm.
take a look at it, or at least
Mhm.
consult with people like, "Hey, what do you guys think?"
Mhm.
Um, and just figure it out as you go and ask for help.
Yep.
Like, that's it.
That's
And so
it.
that's kind of like what I went in, like, in going into this quarter, I'm like, let's just fail forward, figure
Mhm.
it out. Like, of course, everything's a risk, but let's just take calculated risks. What's the worst that can happen?
Mhm.
And keep it forward, because again, you just never know, especially having a job. Like, what could happen?
Mhm.
And you don't want to be caught flat-footed, not
No.
having anything, and planning your life with for a job that maybe potentially won't be there.
Mhm.
So wouldn't you rather depend on yourself? You've always been
Right.
there for you than,
Mhm.
like, somebody else. But
Yeah.
not everybody thinks that way, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
Whatever works for you. But I just know, just based off my experiences, like, I don't want to rely on this person to,
Mhm.
pay me.
Exactly.
I know
Exactly.
I can count on myself. I'm here.
I know.
So yeah.
And I think that's the draw for multifamily, because then what happens is that the person that you're depending on, that's paying you that money, now you own a property that people are wanting to live in, that are paying rent, that actually is paying you the same amount of money that you are making
Right.
working for an employer. So now you know, maybe it's two properties to make up that salary or whatever, but now you're financially free from that job 9 to 5, right? And then
Right.
you got two properties that are bringing you monthly income or revenue to sustain your current lifestyle. And then anything on top of that might be, just extra, or,
Yeah.
or putting back into the business so you can acquire more properties, right?
That's it. It's as simple as that, guys. Like, again, we just overcomplicate things because that's just how we roll. But set goals for yourself, like, like a way to get started. Like, how can I, invest, is write down your goals. Like, if, say, you have your income every month. For
Mm-hmm.
example, like, say your income at your job and maybe your spouse, so the family income, say, is 10K a month or something, net maybe,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can calculate how many doors would I need to cover that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
30 doors, because the way you get the income is passive, right? Cash flow.
Yep.
So how much per month per door would you need to cover that? So usually people, like, the standard or default what is like 300, 400 a month cash flow.
Mhm.
Even some like still take 200, like anything
Mhm.
net. I mean, I might take $5. Like that's one thing. Like I may want at least like 200, 300 a month. Start with that. And then just do simple math.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. $300 a month, divided by 12, 10K a month. How many
Mhm.
doors is that? Okay. I need 50 doors. Um,
Right.
that's a lot of houses. People have done it, like, if you
Mhm.
can.
Yeah.
And one thing I've noticed too with people, who I've read, like, I've started like reading people who have 9 to 5s that have like started this journey. The goal is always like, oh, let's just start slow and buy one property and then see how it goes. But
Mhm.
somehow, because you've gained experience, people always ended up with more properties because you
Right.
you learn the game. Like
Mhm.
you learn like what exactly you have to do. So it's always something that the goal originally was, oh, let's start with one property and see how it goes. They end up with like 10, 20 properties because they just
Mhm.
figured out like, oh, this shit is not hard. Like
Right.
it's actually
Right.
really simple. You just figure it out as you go. And that's why I keep
Mhm.
saying. So write down your goals. How many doors would you need to retire your 9 to 5 to cover that? Yeah, how much like would you want cash flowing per door? What at what age do you want to retire? Like
Mhm.
that's something. And I've always said like I want to retire by 40.
Mhm.
I have a few years. I'm gonna age myself. I'm turning how old am I turning? I can't even know. Like I'm turning 35 in
You're
September.
youngin. You're youngin.
I don't feel young sometimes. I wake up with bones cracking,
Yeah, I hear you.
the hips displaced.
Years of sports. I know that feeling.
Right, right. Got that sports body.
Yep.
Um, so that gives me 5 years. What can I do in 5 years to retire? So, I have some time.
Yeah.
Um, so once you kind of have your goals, focus, okay, what's the strategy you want to focus on? Is it wholesaling, buy and
Mhm.
hold? Burr, maybe not right now, but not to say that wouldn't be a good resource.
Sure.
Another one we've talked about that I think Chris has is lease to own, or
Mhm.
was it owner wrap or whatever, where you basically acquire the property seller finance
Yeah,
perhaps
that's
from
correct.
the
Correct.
owner, and then you wrap it to
Mhm.
a retail buyer.
Mhm.
They give you a down payment and then they pay you monthly. Obviously,
Mhm.
it should be more than what you're paying the seller. And then at some point, they do a balloon payment where the
Yep.
retail buyer will pay you off in full, and then you use those funds to pay off the seller. Then you collect whatever's left over. So that's also I would say almost recession proof as well, because you're not putting in too much of your own money,
Mhm.
and you're collecting payments over time, and you're not dealing with tenants.
Mhm.
You're the owner, but you're kind of not dealing with owner responsibilities
Right.
until
Right.
they pay everything off. Um, and then, what niche do you want to focus on? So
Mhm.
is it small multifamily,
Mhm.
residential, large
Mhm.
storage facilities,
Right.
commercial? There's like so many
There's
ways.
so many.
I think that's also the biggest thing when people want to invest, is like there's so many options and people are like, I want to do this all. I want to do this and this and that. I think I was reading too that talking about like millennials and why it's hard to save or it's hard to invest is because there's just so many options out. We want to do
Mhm. Too many
everything.
options.
We want to be the superheroes and do this and that. We want to wholesale, have our 9 to 5, and then do this and that. Sometimes it's just you have to focus on one thing at a time, and that's one thing we've mentioned. Like get good at one thing, and then like move
Yeah.
into the next. We don't have the patience. Clearly, it's really hard. We want results quickly, so yeah, I think that's a really good blueprint to just kind of get started in investing. That's something I'm going to start doing to acquire properties,
Mhm.
and that's something I just never done before. It was always just, oh yeah, I want to buy a multifamily, but now I'm being more specific. Like I want to buy
Sure.
either a 4 to 50 unit,
Mhm.
um, in this market. I need to I need to buy this amount to cover my monthly income, because once you have that, then you have even more options. Imagine having the luxury to be like, oh, do I want to quit my 9 to 5, or is this
Mhm.
sustainable?
Right.
um it's all options. That's what
Mhm.
ownership gives you.
That's absolutely. And one point I wanted to bring up too is like if you still have a 9 to 5 and you do want to invest, I think your options are a lot better because
Hmm.
you do have a stable job that they would
Right.
look at to actually purchase, the
Yeah, for
loan
financing.
for financing and
Right.
stuff. So you may be in a better position if you didn't have a job that you were getting into investing, right? Just depending on your credit score and stuff like that and
Right.
how much you made. But if you're not in a position, you may want to partner up with somebody else. But having a 9 to 5 does not, you know, hinder you in any way on doing
No,
deals or getting more property because it also can be a great help because that W-2 does help your chances of
it's
getting
leveraging your
financing.
9 to
Yeah.
5,
Yeah.
and that's where it's like, okay, I have income history or work
Mm-hmm.
history for the past, however long. That's going to look good on for underwriters or loan officers that are,
Sure.
giving that to you. So, if it's just a thing where even for commercial, if I have to put down 20%, like
Mm-hmm.
that's not bad. Like, there's ways, and
Absolutely.
there's things I've read where people just find ways to get that 20% where they don't have to pay it themselves from their own pocket. Usually, and this is one side mindset I was thinking is like, well, I have to save, which, you probably should save anyways, like have like a
Mm-hmm.
rainy day fund and stuff for
Yeah. Yep.
that. But people think I have to save to get a down payment, or I have to take out my 401k, and that's still great. I mean, I've considered all of that, but you can also leverage that. There's people that buy new interest-free credit cards and pay
Yep.
with that,
Mm-hmm.
pay their down payment with that. Or, they just get a hard money lender or private money to cover that 20%, and they go all in without acquiring the property. Now you still
That's
have
it.
to like follow, make sure, you have the process set of like, okay, how am I going to pay these people back? How am I going
Mm-hmm.
to pay my credit
Mm-hmm.
card back? But yeah, there's so many ways now to earn income, especially if you buy like a commercial property. You're going
Mm-hmm.
to get your money, you're going to be collecting income,
Yeah.
that you can use to pay off things, or if you want to sell it after a certain amount of time. There's just so many
So
things. It's
much.
just figuring it out as you go. That's really all I'm learning. It's like something that looks so daunting of acquiring
Mm-hmm.
something like a multifamily was really intimidating. It's really not, but I may say differently. Like, once you get close to that, where you're like, oh shit, this is really happening.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's
No.
just kind of preparing yourself mentally for it.
No, 100%. And I think, just going back to the initial question is that um, I think it is the right time. And, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, is that really any time is the right time to get into real estate investing. It's just what strategy is going to be best for you going forward. And how do you um, get that started, or how do you get
Mhm,
into that, whether it's stacking up some money to do that or leveraging your 9 to 5 or getting into a specific side of real estate that allows you to be involved in certain investment, whether it's residential, commercial,
mhm,
multifamily, or anything else. So I think just kind of understanding that um, it's going to make your decision easier to actually get into it. And,
mhm.
even though we're in a recession, it can be scary and you just don't know what's going to happen. You might be anxious about stuff. Just know that, like, a lot of people that are making a lot of money now got into it when there was a recession, right?
Or people were
So,
too scared to buy.
yep, right. So I think the investor's mentality is opposite of what people are. If you're thinking you're too scared, they're thinking this is an amazing opportunity,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
facts.
So that's kind of the mindset you gotta kind of switch from.
Yep, that's spot on. Definitely a bar right there. Just write down your goals. Like we just
Hmm.
said, what do you want? If your goal is to buy multifamily or buy a property, like write them down. Like what do you like? How much do you want to earn each month, each year? What strategy do you want to focus on acquiring that? Just to start being specific. I mean, we've talked about the SMART goals
Mm-hmm.
method, but just keep it simple. Write down your goals. Just write down what you want to do, how you want to do it, what you want to focus on, and just focus on that. Focus
Right.
on that for the next 3 to 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
See where it takes you, and just be consistent with it. That's the only thing is, don't write it down and then look at it 6 months later or on January 1st or December 31st.
Right. Right.
Write down once you have your goals, you can then write smaller goals to achieve that. That's kind of
Mm-hmm.
really, to make it digestible, because sometimes you need small wins. So that's it.
Yeah.
That's all that we would focus on, to like really focus on investing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, right now is the right time.
Yep.
Um, let's definitely get this money. It's there.
It's
Just
definitely there. I
yeah,
mean,
just can't
we're
be
seeing it
scared.
all the time. Like investors are just investing in a lot of stuff. Like
People are still buying.
yep.
Yeah, don't be the person be like, oh, it's not the right time. just
Yeah.
just just don't be that person.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say, like, you may not be going through something, of course, but
Of course. Yeah.
I mean, that's still no reason to just educate yourself and put yourself out there, and
Absolutely.
just figure it out as you go. Because I
Hey.
think you said, like, people after the recession didn't say, oh, I wish I didn't buy that house. They
Mm-hmm.
say, I wish I
Mm-hmm.
bought more.
Mm-hmm.
So however long this recession will last, I hope to come out of it with hella properties. That's
Yeah.
kind of the mindset I'm going into that.
Exactly.
So I'm really excited to just see, where everything goes. There's a lot of changes, even with my life. I'm moving
Sure.
to SoCal, and
Yeah.
just seeing, like, the opportunities. Let's just kind
Mm-hmm.
of, just surround yourself, or put yourself in, like, positions to win.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. That's great. I'm super excited you moving down to SoCal. So I love that. Um, and I think, with the mentality that you have, you'll reach your retirement goals for sure.
I
100%.
got 5 years. I'm gonna have a
Let's
countdown,
go. Let's
like,
go.
5 years.
I
Yeah.
love it.
So yeah, we're really excited. Like, what it is to come. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's why you work so hard for.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Mm-hmm.
for that ultimately. But um, I think we had other questions, but I think we answered it throughout our conversation.
Sure.
But
Sure.
can you get deals in the recession? Yes. The answer
Mm-hmm.
is yes, you can. So hope you guys really enjoyed this episode. We talked a lot about how to get started if you're new, if you have a 9 to 5, or if you don't have a 9 to 5. Um, reach out to people like us. Reach out to maybe more experienced real estate investors, like we referred to Chris Jefferson, but there's so many
Mm-hmm.
others out there that are killing it, that been in the game for over a decade, and have
Mm-hmm.
learned so much. And just take action, set some
Yep.
goals, set small goals, and just focus on those. And yeah, we want to see what how it comes out in the next
Mm-hmm.
3 to 6 months.
For sure.
Um, because yeah, it's gonna be crazy. You'll see where and this is the thing, like, you'll see where people took action, where people didn't. And,
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't want to be that person that's like, no, you didn't end up
That
with
didn't take
anything.
action. Yeah.
Right. And we
Like,
know
dang
you
it, I
didn't take
missed
action.
it.
We're holding ourselves accountable by saying
Yeah,
it
for
here.
sure.
I'll even post this as a reel to, like,
There
hold
you
ourselves
go.
accountable, is that we will buy properties. Um, One way or another, we'll figure something out for it,
I
and
love
be
it.
better because of it. So,
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And
love it.
we got into this business for a reason, and we're adjusting to everything that's happening. So, we want to live up to our goals that we've written down and achieve those. So that's what it's all about.
That's facts. Well, guys, don't forget to follow us on IG, Real Estate Gladia, at Mr. Tim REI, get underscore the bag podcast on IG. Hit the like, subscribe, notifications, all that good stuff. Um, we're here for you guys. So if
Yep.
you ever need
Yep.
anything, hit us up on our social media outlets. We're usually pretty good at responding back. But appreciate you guys tuning in. You can catch us probably next Wednesday.
Yeah,
Some things
yeah,
with schedule's been messing, but
yeah.
catch us
We'll keep
next
you all
week.
posted. Yep,
Yeah,
yep,
yeah.
for sure.
But appreciate you guys tuning in. Have a wonderful day. Peace.
Peace. See you.